What is good, Tsla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one I'm going to break down what's going on with the overall market, why the market saw a bit of a sell-off near the end of the day, what the market makers were thinking. I'm also going to talk about Tesla's stock and some news that just came out as Tesla just announced that they installed over 500,000 Powerwalls going forward, and this is some very good news for the company. I consider this very bullish for the long term, and once again, Tesla's energy storage business is continuing to go up. Before I break down about all this information, though, before I talk about Tesla's stock and what you should be watching for, let me just mention a couple of things before starting. Firstly, I'm not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice. And don't forget about the Moomoo link. The offer ends very soon. If you put in $100, you are guaranteed up to 5 free stocks plus a $100 cash reward. The offer ends in just a couple of weeks. Check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. All right, so for SPY, we had a very, very interesting day. The market was basically trading sideways for the majority of the day. Then during the last couple of hours, the market started selling off a little bit, and we got a more sharp sell-off near the very end. But it wasn't anything too significant because we're only down like 0.34% for the day. Overall, we held above the 15 minutes 200 EMA, and the market closed kind of red. But going into next week, there are going to be other catalysts to dictate whether or not the market continues to drop or not. As for Tesla, we had a very, very interesting day. I told you guys in the morning that Tesla had either a bullish or bearish case. I was kind of in the middle with it because it depended on the OPEX expirations. I told you that if Tesla held above 260, there was a good chance that this inverse head and shoulders could play out. We had like a left shoulder developing and then a right shoulder. And this did play out for the most part, but Tesla came just short of reaching this target of the 264.8 area. It came very close, but it came just short. And at the very end of the day, Tesla was trying to get it. It was trying very hard. It established this very tiny looking bearish divergence before it sold off, but it really wanted to get there. And it ended up coming short because of the market selling off. Also, profit takers came right back in, and Tesla ended up closing still green, just above 260, but it slowed down at the very end. Now, I also told you guys the bearish case in my earlier video, and that is if Tesla broke below 255, we could have seen like 250, but the bullish case played out, and I broke down why on earth we also could have seen a sell-off near the end of the day because of the market makers, and that is what ended up happening as well. Now, why did the market sell off? Why did Tesla see, like a slowdown at the end of the day? That's because the whole market slowed down at the very end. And let me explain exactly why, just briefly. So there were many reasons for it. It wasn't just the market makers. It's also because it's a Friday before a long weekend, and we tend to see a lot of profit takers during days like this. But when you look at the options chain for SPY, if you look at the calls and you look at the open interest and all of this data, you will see something very interesting. The market makers were looking at this, and they realized that there was a lot of open interest at 440 and above. So 440, we have like 22,000 open interest. It goes up to about 29,000 for 442, and it continues to go up at these higher levels. Notice that SPY, as it hit this like 442, 443 level, we started getting these rejections and the market started trading sideways. We failed to really hold above 442 for that reason. But there was one instance where the market came down to 440 and we saw algos kick in and we saw a big increase in call volume. So lots of algos tried to push the market up. And that's the reason why, the market makers were looking at this data, because the market makers realized they can't get 100% crazy victories every single day, meaning the market makers could not bring us down to max pain. They're not going to make SPY crash 5 or 6% just spontaneously, because if it did end up dropping, the first thing is there could be a lot of halts, and secondly, right, there are going to be a lot of individuals buying like crazy. It's not really worth the fight in their eyes. So the market makers just looked at the options chain and they found what's going to be more advantageous for them. And they just took the smaller victory instead of trying to get a massive one. This would be a push below 440. That's what they were looking for based off the open interest. And that is what ended up happening almost exactly. So it's not a coincidence that we closed just below 440. It was based off the market makers' benefits and based off the market makers using the market to their advantage. So what do I mean by that? The market was going to sell off a little bit anyways at the end because of profit taking, but it became more extreme because of the particular level. And they use this to their advantage, and this is why the market slowed down. Now, the market's in a very interesting place. I will talk more about the future in a later video, but for now, if the market continues to break below and fails to hold 440, there's going to be an increased probability of more downside. We have a lot of Fed speakers coming out over the next week. So we have Jerome Powell speaking for 2 days on I believe Wednesday and Thursday. We have Bullard speaking on Tuesday. We have just a bunch of them. We have Williams speaking. We have Jerome Powell speaking on Wednesday once again. A bunch of Fed speakers for Wednesday. Thursday, we have Jerome Powell speaking again. The guy has a lot to say this time around. Lots of other Fed speakers on Thursday. And then for Friday, we have Bullard and Bostic speaking. So lots and lots of Fed speakers going into next week. This may cause the market to slow down, and the Fed may intentionally try to slow the market down. They tend to do that, and a lot of these Fed speakers are very fixated on 2 more rate hikes. So it's very likely that they may try to slow the markets down by talking about how high core CPI, core PCE, and etc. tend to be. And once again, it's all just part of a little game. They're going to use this to their advantage. And despite that, it could cause Tesla to slow down a bit too. Not promising it though until we get confirmation. But I'm just saying it's a risk and a possibility. Tesla sold off with the market, at least near the very end of the day. Tesla was almost at 264 and it came all the way down to the 259 area before bouncing and closing just barely above 260. Once again, the market caused it to slow down. Otherwise, it would have pushed and tried to get that completion of the inverse head and shoulders, getting all the way up to that resistance level. It tried, and overall, it's in a very decent place, closing at 260, but there is still a risk of some downside for next week because of the Fed speakers. I'm just saying it's a risk. I'm not promising it. So please keep that in the back of your mind. Finally, let's talk about some news affecting Tesla and what the data is telling us. Tesla has installed over 500,000 of these Powerwalls. This is once again great news for Tesla moving forward. What is so good about the Powerwalls? Well, you have to remember what they actually are. The Powerwalls give consumers a big advantage. First off, there's a $500 rebate, which incentivizes more people to buy them. And on top of that, this is going to be used as a backup energy storage mechanism. So a lot of people, especially if you live in certain parts of the West Coast, for example, people tend to get power outages. So having Powerwall to your side, you can see in the picture here, when there's a power outage because of a storm, if there's something else that happens because of the power grids, for example, many times people lose their power. But having an energy storage mechanism that could use and connect with solar energy could really benefit consumers big time and help them gain energy independence and continue to power their homes amidst power outages. That's why Powerwall is very popular. You can see this one house right here has it, and they're lit up when the other houses are just not. And this is great for a lot of consumers, great for energy storage, and a lot of people just love it, having this backup protection that could power houses and many appliances for many days, and simultaneously connects to the solar systems. So the solar systems which are integrated, they're going to connect to the power walls, which could help store a lot of energy on a day-to-day basis. A lot of parts of the US, which may not have the best power grid systems, or maybe they can't keep up with the insane amount of demand for energy, especially during the summertime, they could experience some power outages, right? Also, like around the Midwest, this could happen maybe because of storms and etc. So having this technology allows for people to store the energy. It allows them to put solar panels on their roofs, which they could use to store energy, especially in hot areas in like the Midwest and the West Coast. This is very, very useful, very, very awesome. It's so useful that Tesla now has over 500,000 of them installed, which is amazing news. I want to congratulate the entire Tesla team for this. And they're continuing to do very well, and we're projected to see even more growth in this going forward. That's 500,000 globally. Once again, very, very awesome. Now, this is good because the more that these come out, the more revenue Tesla is going to help bring in for energy storage. And on top of that, this is going to continue to grow as part of Tesla's business model. Tesla is not just a car company, it's also an energy storage company. And this is once again just very, very awesome news. Now, looking at some data, Tesla had about 167 million in volume, well above average again, still showing some signs of relative strength. There were some indicators suggesting Tesla could cool off a bit earlier, but then I told you guys that there's no confirmation yet of Tesla cooling off. That's why I remained in the middle. And as a result, we saw Tesla make its way back up after this news came out, and Tesla continued to hold up. The short volume is still at this like somewhat high level. It's still a little bit higher than like levels back here, but it's not really affecting Tesla negatively too much. The overall short interest was declining as we saw more short covering going on for Tesla, and Tesla managed to hold up quite nicely. To add on to that, there was some news that came out about some strong potential boosts in the Q2 deliveries forecasts. That was another good piece of news that helped Tesla hold up. Besides that, nothing too massive came out besides some things Elon Musk said, which I will talk more about tomorrow. But other than that, Tesla held up quite nicely, and we're still getting some good ratings from many analysts. Tesla also outperformed the market, so it still has strength. So there's no true confirmation of this thing breaking down just yet. Last but not least, let me just add this before I talk about the technicals. The Model 3 listings are still kind of going up a bit. I want to see them drop even more because of more incentives. But many people are just waiting for the refresh right now. So I'm hoping after the refresh comes, we see a big drop in the inventory levels, which is going to help Tesla build more revenue and continue to grow with stronger potential earnings. Now, for everything else, the Model X and Model Y still have very relatively low inventory levels, but the Model Y's inventory levels are starting to go up again, and that's not really a very good sign. So I'm hoping this cools off a bit. It's still at a not too high level, but they are starting to go up. So we'll see if this could reach a high and then start cooling off. I really hope for that. But anyways, let's talk about the charts now. As for Tesla, let's just look at the 1 hour time frame. Let me hide my drawings because I don't want to talk too much about like Tuesday specifically. We have a long weekend, right? We have Father's Day on Sunday. Happy Father's Day to everyone, by the way. And also for Monday, we have Juneteenth. Uh, Once again, very important stuff. The market's going to be closed on Monday because of that. So we have a long weekend coming. As for Tesla, we had this bearish divergence developing, and it did play out for now. Tesla came down, but now Tesla's trying to hold up after bouncing off this support very close to this 247 area. Tesla has an imbalance down here, so it's worth noting that Tesla could always come back down to this level, but there's no confirmation of it breaking down just yet in the trend because of how it's holding up and because of the bullish catalyst that just came out. So confirmation of a downtrend would be a break below the 50 EMA. Tesla tested this and just bounced during the pre-market. If it breaks below this in a strong manner and fails to get back above it, that's going to be your confirmation that Tesla could see more downside. If Tesla holds above this and keeps going, it could try to make its way up to 268 next. 264, 265, then 268, then 270 come next. They're still very possible to be met. This inverse head and shoulder structure is still relevant, so it is possible Tesla tries to push up more first before we see anything else. But my only risk about Tesla is the fact that the market may cool off a bit because of the Fed speakers. We have to be very careful, especially when Jerome Powell speaks. The Fed may not like the market being this high, at least for the time being. I just wanted to note that on the 4 hour time frame on SPY, we have a tendency of testing the 50 EMA over and over again, and that happens to be at 433. There's a high probability that if the market continues to hold below the 440 area, at least for SPY and SPX, below 4,400, there's an increased probability that the market may cool off a little bit more and revisit the 50 EMA around the lower 430s. There's a higher probability, but there's not a guarantee, okay? So we're going to wait and see what happens during the pre-market on Tuesday. But until then, I just wanted to note a couple of things like this. On the QQQ, the same thing is going on. We're about to get this bearish cross in the PPO, which could cause it to cool off a bit. And its 50 EMA happens to be around just under 360. It's probably going to be closer to 360 by the time we open on Monday. So we're just going to watch this carefully. Until then, I just want to keep this video as short as possible for you guys. Let me just talk about just a couple of tickers just to be safe. I mean, Nvda is holding up quite nicely, but it did come down and get another rejection off this area, forming a bearish divergence. So if the market cools off and it causes Nvidia to drop a bit, we're going to be watching the 50 EMA around the 404 level. We also have support around the 410, 414, and then 420 areas. 420 in particular is going to be a stronger support zone because that's where Nvidia's previous high used to be, like right about here. So we're going to be watching that very carefully. If it cools off and if it tries to push up, 440 is going to be some strong resistance followed by the 445 area. And that's pretty much it. I mean, Google is just trading sideways. Amazon came down quite a bit. We saw Amazon tank, but it's trying to hold up the 4 hour 50 EMA. If that fails, it has more downside. If not, it could just continue to hold for the time being. Depends on the Fed speakers. Same thing with Aapl. I mean, Aapl closed below 185, so that could be a red flag for this thing going forward. If Aapl breaks down, the next important support is going to be around the higher 182s, followed by 182, then it getting potentially closer to 182 flat and 180. So 182.15 is where the 50 EMA is on the 4 hour time frame. I'm going to be watching this on Aapl. If it does truly get a cross down on the PPO that's confirmed and it starts dropping, that could become a bearish signal. So signals are starting to lean a little bit more in favor of the bears as Apple's cooling off, but we're going to wait and see what happens in the pre-market for more confirmation. That's just going to be my brief, reflection and outlook of the market, just giving you guys a glimpse of what I'm seeing. I'm going to talk more about this on Monday. When Monday comes, guys, I'm going to release a video about Tuesday because the market's going to be closed on Monday. I will talk more later on, but for now, I'm just going to end it from here. Thank you all for listening. Have an absolutely spectacular weekend. I appreciate every single one of you guys. Remain calm, cool, and collected, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Tesla to the moon alongside the whole market as the long term is still incredibly bright, and peace out.